All right. Just waiting for Bill to join in. I'm very excited.
Yeah, it keeps beeping, and I don't know what it means.
What's beeping?
I just keep hearing this little like, doom.
Do you?
Yeah.
That's weird.
Well, then go ahead. I'm going crazy.
Wonder if we get to cut this down so you can miss all the part with us waiting for the call at the end. That'll be fun. I think he's got the link in his email now. So hopefully that'll work. It looks like he's offline over there.
Yeah, it is. No, we were sending invites that weren't coming, it looks like.
Bill, I think there you go. Bill,
Thank you very much.
thank you. Sorry it was so hard.
Oh, our apologies as well.
All right, here we go. Is that you with
Yeah.
Blackboard?
Yeah, thank you very much. Sorry for the technical.
Which one of you is Chris?
I'm Chris.
Okay, you're Chris. I
Yeah,
can see you very well. I cannot hear you.
you can't hear us.
I am not hearing you.
Let's see if you got your thing turned on.
I'm not on the phone anymore. That's true. How are we now? Are we better?
There you go. There you go.
Okay, yeah, I'm not on the phone anymore.
Okay. All right. Who's going to do the interview, Chris?
Yeah, we'll probably both a little, but yeah, I'm going to be the main. I'll ask the main questions, and yeah, he'll be here for some
Color commentary.
Okay. And we're talking, what, 30 minutes roughly? Is that what you said?
Yeah, 15, 30, somewhere in there. We'll see how it
you're
goes.
comfortable with. Okay.
Yeah,
Can
we'll-
I hang up the phone?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right. Good enough. I'm ready to get
Okay, great. So thank you, Bill Kreml, for being with us today. You're an academic, an activist, an author. As I've followed you through the Green Party, it's pretty awe-inspiring. Some of the work you've done over the decades for me, a young person. So can you give our listeners a little background on how you got to this point? And
Sure. As you said, I am an academic. I graduated from Northwestern Law School in 1965, started teaching. I really was in the academy for a full half century. I taught a couple of classes last year down at the College of Charleston. But what I began to work on are things that I was very concerned with and then had an application to the real world. In other words, it's not just pure theory. There's a little theory in it, but there's also an awful lot of what's going on. And in late 1979, I said, I see something in the government. And I'm a political science professor, and I have a law degree. I also went back and got a PhD in political science. And I said, this government isn't working very well. Some of it was Jimmy Carter, who was not a very effective communicator, particularly with Congress. Congress, like some other country for him. I don't know what it was, but that wasn't the whole problem. There was beginning to be what people called gridlock.
Mm-hmm.
Right? People began to see, this system is not meshing its gears well. Let me go through something very quickly.
Of course.
Yeah.
No, of course. Go ahead.
All right, fine. Let me ask you to think of a spectrum or a continuum, okay? Centripetal on one side, okay? And we all understand Hitler, Stalin, Idi Amin, those bad guys. On the other extreme, and we don't think about this, is a system that might be overly centrifugal. In other words, so decentralized that it loses its critical mass. It loses its coherence, okay? And what do we have in this country? We have something that no other country has. We have all 5 of the benchmarks of an overly centrifugal system. Separation of powers, federalism, true bicameralism, because the upper house here is as powerful as the lower house. Well, that's not true in Great Britain or France or any of those kind of places. Staggered elections. That's something that we don't think about, but it's very anti-majoritarian. You only get to elect some portion, so that the people are never fully understood. And then something that a lot of people don't know is in the Constitution, and that is separation of people. In other words, if you're in the House of Representatives, you cannot serve in the executive branch. If you're in the cabinet, say, you cannot serve in the Senate or something like that, okay? You put those 5 things together, and you have a very disjointed system. And so what's the word that you've heard these last few years as things have really started to grind to a halt, which I predicted would happen, and some other people did too, okay? You hear this compromise. Well, why don't we all compromise? Well, that's nice. If people can compromise, that's always good. What if they don't? What's the plan B in our Constitution?
Right.
There is no plan B,
Yeah.
okay? Read James Madison, number 10 Federalist. It's an anti-majoritarian statement. You cannot aggregate the populace and move it one way or the other. I don't know how many of the people who will see this, or the two of you, have sailed, okay? Have you ever sailed out in a lake or ocean?
I'm terrified of water, so no.
I've been on plenty of boats, but not sailboats. Not
Well, all right.
sailing.
Very simple notion. You cannot go straight into the wind. All right?
Yeah.
If you put the bow of your boat directly into the wind, what happens to your sail?
No, yeah, because it's dead.
It does this, and there's a term for it. It's called luffing. Okay? And you don't go anywhere. In fact, you get pushed back a little bit.
Yeah.
What do you have to do? There's a term for that. It's called tacking. Okay, you tack this way, and the wind blows off the end of the sail, and then you go a little ways that way and back and forth, and that's how you go upwind. And that's the only way you get through history. And I won't get into Hegel and the dialectic and all that, although I've written those kinds of things. And the fact is that you have to have some kind of dialectical movement in one direction or the other. In a perfect system, it's pretty balanced. It's not extreme. You do it for a while, then you do it, and everybody can understand that, I'm sure. Well, we don't have that in our system. And so in the fall of 1979, I said, I need to run for a public office and begin to talk about this. So I ran for the U.S. Senate. And I ran down in South Carolina. I ran against Fritz Hollings, very popular senator. There was no way that some guy from Chicago was going to beat Fritz Hollings in the South Carolina Senate race. But I got good publicity. And I'll show you a couple things here very quickly. The TRB column of the New Republic, which was the principal political column of its time. The Christian Science Monitor also wrote a piece on there. There was a small piece in the Washington Post, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what I said in that campaign was this: we've got the bicentennial coming up in 1987. Let's focus on that. Let's get an A-list group of both academics and political people, all right? And let's come up with some proposals that move our system slightly off of that centrifugal extreme, okay? Such things as a 4-year House term. As you know, House is 2 years, okay? Let's move it to 4 years and have it be concurrent with the presidency. So if you elect a president, all of the members of the House, 1/3 of the Senate, all at one time, and that gives you a direction. That's what the people want to go, where they want to go. All right. So I talked about that in the 1980 campaign. As I say, some wonderful people got interested, and a group was formed called the Committee on the Constitutional System. It was chaired by a man named Lloyd Cutler, who had been counsel to the president under Jimmy Carter, C. Douglas Dillon, who had been in both the Eisenhower and the Kennedy cabinets, Senator Nancy Kassebaum, Bill Fulbright, the senator who had opposed the Vietnam War, those kinds of people from the real world of politics, people like myself, Jim Sundquist from Brookings, James McGregor Burns from Williams College, who had written the great Pulitzer Prize book on FDR. In other words, it was a blue ribbon group of wonderful people. And in 1987, we submitted, okay, this report and took it to the President of the United States. Lloyd Cutler got an interview with Ronald Reagan, took it to Ronald Reagan, okay, and other people in our committee took it to the leadership of the Congress and made these recommendations. Okay, now I'll ask you a question. What was the response of the Republican and the Democratic Party to the recommendations of the Committee on the Constitutional System?
I'd be surprised if they even read it.
You got it right. Silence. Silence. They wanted nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
These people had been bought off. They didn't want to change the system.
They're benefiting from it.
They were benefiting from it. They were being bought off by lobbyists. Many of them look forward to becoming lobbyists after serving for a while. Yeah. It's gotten to the point in Washington where being in the Congress is kind of AAA baseball. Okay. Wow. The real major leagues is K Street, where the lobbyists are, and these are the guys who make the 7 figures, all right, mm-hmm. and who come and write the bills and say, here, Senator, this is what you're submitting today, all right? You know, that's the way it works. And so the system has been utterly compromised. It has been privatized, okay? I mean, we tend to think of the Congress as a public institution. Well, maybe it was supposed to be at one point, but no more. It's run overwhelmingly by private interest groups. And it was so easy because the system was very centrifugal. And then there were so-called reforms. Like in 1974, the so-called New Left people came into the Congress. It was a big, this was after Watergate and Nixon and all this. Mm-hmm. And what did they do? They further decentralized the Congress by having the subcommittees become autonomous with their own staffs. And what happened, of course, is that there were more and more access points, okay? Political scientists have written about this. Access points, and you could get what you wanted put into the hopper very easily that way. There were also what were called captive agencies. So the Food and Drug Administration is supposedly protecting us from bad foods and bad drugs. In fact, winds up working for big food and big pharma. And the causal arrow goes the other way. All right. Yeah. So we've seen this. Even something as important as healthcare, for example. All right, you can give the president some credit. He certainly brought in some people who did not have healthcare. But look what he had to give up. The insurance companies are cleaning up, just absolutely mopping the floor with us on the deductibles, on the co-pays, all this kind of thing. It's written in the law that the government can't negotiate with the pharmaceutical companies. So what is Big Pharma doing? We've seen the increases in prices.
Yeah.
It's outrageous. The public sector can't fight that. Okay, so that kind of thing is going on, and of course, what's going to happen is that it's just going to get worse because the final thing that was done, there was no public option. Okay, there was no public option. You had to go through the private insurance exchanges. Okay, and then as you saw, the Supreme Court ruling, Sebelius. You couldn't mandate to the states. So some very conservative states like the southern states, they don't have the exchanges.
Yeah.
They don't have health care. I'm down here at the University of South Carolina. We've got over 300,000 people who have no health insurance at all. Sorry. Why? Because they're a very right-wing legislature, and they're not going to give it to the black folks. You know what I'm saying here? All right. You know, and that's really what it's all about. So that's where I am, you know, and I have been fighting for constitutional reform for a very long time. At a minimum, 4-year term concurrent, okay. At a minimum, overturning Citizens United so that we get this kind of huge, here's a guy, Sheldon Adelson, you know, throwing $300 million this year. The Koch brothers have pledged nearly $900 billion. You know, I mean, this is just unbelievable what they're putting in. Excuse me, I shouldn't say million, but still, it's just outrageous. It's just outrageous. They have bought the system. We have become an aristocracy that has been corrupted. And if you go back to Aristotle 2,500 years ago, the word for that is oligarchy. And that's what we have. We have an oligarchy. And it's exactly what we feared. Because the Federalists, you know, wonderful people though, Washington and Adams and Hamilton and those people were, they were elitists, and they kind of believed that just a few guys ought to really kind of run the whole system. And so you have this aristocracy of the Walton family, the Scaife family, the Koch family, you know those names. And that's what's happened. So anyway, I mean, this is what's going on. And so I was also concerned with such things as, and I'll simply point this out as a second thing, what was happening to the middle class, okay? Because the corporations have been able to get away with murder. There's no antitrust enforcement. They're merging like crazy. They're engaging in what are called corporate inversions, which means they're going overseas, okay? You can find a company that is more than 25% the size of your company. Guess what? Okay, you can merge with them, become an Irish company, like Pfizer is becoming an Irish company, take all of the tax revenue from us, take the jobs from us, and we've been hollowed out. Look at the trade imbalances. It's just unbelievable. So anyway, I began to be concerned about the middle class, and I wrote a book some years ago called America's Middle Class, From Subsidy to Abandonment. Okay, can you see that?
Yep.
There was a time when the middle class, believe it or not, was somewhat subsidized, particularly in the white collar areas, but not anymore. Not anymore. Well, okay. So I wrote that, and it's interesting. I wrote that and published in 1997, and a professor at Harvard by the name of Warren. Okay, you see her name?
Yeah.
Professor Elizabeth Warren thought enough of me to cite me 1, 2, 3 times in her footnotes. Now she's a senator, as you know.
Yeah.
Okay. Campaign finance, that's the final thing I'll talk about. It got so bad that I entered the South Carolina presidential primary, actually the caucuses, in 2000. And of course, you have to file with the FEC, and you've got to give them a financial statement and then tell you who you're getting money from and blah, 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 blah. Okay. I filed, and I did all that straight up. And then I stopped doing some things they wanted me to do. I put down the amount of money I was getting from some people, but I didn't put down the names. Okay. 1 quarterly report I didn't file at all. Okay. You all remember Molly Ivins, wonderful woman who wrote wonderful muckraking kinds of things. She died a couple of years ago. She wrote about me. It was a syndicated column about send Bill Kreml $201 at the cutoff and where you have to report to the FEC. And then I say, we're in danger of becoming an oligarchy and so forth. So that was a syndicated column by a very well-respected person. This is a story that Business Week did on the same thing. So I could go on and on, but as I say, if you look at the dysfunctionality of the government, if you look at what has happened to the middle class, and if you look at the third thing, which is the utter corruption of the campaign financing system, where are we? Where are we? Well, we're an oligarchy.
Yeah.
And it's a terrible thing. What was a fine constitutional democracy, although overly centrifugal, you could see that this is where we were going. And again, I don't think I'm any smarter than anybody else, but I knew where to look because I had both a law degree and a PhD, and I was reading and researching. And by late '79, I said, this is not working. It's going to get worse. And it did. I'm very sad about it. I'm also very angry about it. But only by talking about it are we going to change it. And I'm agreeing because, you know, the Democratic Party used to stand for what I stood for, but they just sold out to the corporations. They sold out to the Israeli lobby. Not that Israel is wholly at fault, but, you know, what they've done in the last few years has just been outrageous. And, you know, they own the Democratic Party. Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Lieberman and Schumer and these guys. And I'm not picking on the Jews. A lot of it is evangelical Christians who, you know, are just outrageous here. And there are many wonderful Jews. I'm a member of a group called Jewish Voice for Peace, which is was founded by Jews and is run by Jews. Wonderful people, and they're trying to do something to balance something here. But you know, 3/4 of the United States Congress goes to the AIPAC meetings every year, and if you don't vote the right way on these appropriations, and Israel wants more and more money all the time, and what they're doing on the West Bank is worse and worse all the time, they will run somebody against you. I remember what happened when I was still, let's see, this is 1984, I believe. There was a wonderful senator from Illinois, a liberal Republican, Charles Percy. And he was head of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and he believed in what was called an even-handed approach in the Middle East. Not good enough for the Israeli lobby. And they just poured all kinds of money into that campaign in Illinois, and they kicked this guy out. And anybody who was not on board was going to be, you know, put on shore. It was a very sad thing. It was a very sad thing. Okay, is there anything else that you want to ask me about?
Yeah, I had a couple of things.
You're from Springfield? Is this where you're coming from, Springfield,
yes.
Illinois? Yeah. Okay. Fine. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. I graduated from the University of Illinois Springfield with a degree in political philosophy.
Oh, great. Oh, great. Okay.
And
let me recommend something to you.
Yeah.
If you want to read about where I am, this is the last thing that I have published. Okay. This is my 9th book. It's called The Bias of Temperament in American Politics. Okay. Carolina Academic Press. It's now out in paperback, which is cheaper. Carolina Academic Press, Durham. Okay.
Okay.
And anybody can get that up on the web. $21, but if you buy it, if you get it online, they knock off 10%, so it's like $18.90 or something like that. And it gives you the full explanation and a whole theoretical foundation, which I won't get into here because it's pretty complicated, but about how not just what the objective world is coming to, but how there's a bias of people looking at the world. In other words, what are the cognitive maps? Well, they're not evenly distributed, okay? There's certain kinds of minds that are running this kind of thing, and there's a subjective factor, and that's what that book is all about.
One thing I wanted to ask about is something that really struck me as a Green, and that is that you don't wish the Green Party to adopt a formal philosophy. And
I don't think that we will ever have a formal philosophy. We have the 4 pillars, we have the 10 key values.
Mhm.
I think there should be kind of a soft understanding of not just what we believe, but how we got there.
Mhm.
Okay, how we think about things. But I would never try to encapsulate that in some debate. First of all, the Greens would tear themselves apart. You know, we all argue about it. You know, so we just don't want to do that. But some understanding that how we think is important, and it's different from the way, say, the libertarians think or the conservatives generally. It's a different kind of mindset. I don't know if you're familiar with the research that's going on the last years on cognitions. It's very important stuff. I mean, different people think differently. Just the mechanics of their mind are different. And there is a split. That's a kind of a left-right split. And basically, the left gets screwed. I mean, if you look at, say, the law degree. Now, you know, in some ways, the English common law education is a great education. I went to Northwestern, wonderful school, all this kind of thing. But it's biased. It's biased. It's highly analytic. You know, it's highly deductive. It's highly logical. It's not holistic. It's not spatial, you know. All right. It's a different kind of education. When I got through law school, with the English common law education, I sat down and read a fair amount of European civil law, which comes from morality, philosophy, goes back to Justinian, the Justinian Code, the Corpus Juris, and all this kind of. It's a very different way of thinking about law. Okay, I felt I needed to kind of liberate my mind, you know, turn it and do a little bit on the other side. Very few people who go to law school spend their next 6 months reading European civil law.
They don't detox after.
Well, you just don't have, well, you've got, you know, there's still one jurisdiction, you know, Louisiana, that has some civil law left. But other than that, it just doesn't exist in this country.
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to ask you about, this week on Facebook, you made a post talking about how there's a lot of conversation about term limits.
Yeah.
And expanding that to corporations.
Well, I was having a little fun with that, but
and I know I knew that it was, yeah.
All these right wingers say, "Well, throw the bums out," you know. No, it's not the bums. I mean, all you're going to do is get a new set of bums, you know. Yeah, I mean, what good does that do? What we really do need, and in the old days, as one of the respondents said, you know, you didn't have in perpetuity corporate charters. How are you doing? Are you doing something good for society? Fine, then we'll be glad to renew your corporate charter. But if you're not, if you're screwing people, if you're taking jobs overseas, if you're avoiding taxes, you're hiding stuff in the Cayman Islands and Liechtenstein and places like that, then no, I'm sorry. The corporations have been disloyal. I hate to use that term, but I mean, they've just been disloyal. They don't care about the United States, you know, and so many of them have left. And, you know, it's a very nasty situation.
Our government still treats them as though, you know, they care about us and they are Americans, even though the multinational, you know, corporations, they have moved beyond the idea that they are, you know, beholden to a state.
Right, right. No, it's a very sad situation. And when you put the antitrust failures with these corporate inversions and then the tax avoidances together, you know, there are just many holes in the bucket. And our tax revenues have suffered from it. Plus, and this is something that everybody should know about, 23 countries have now separated their international exchange from the US dollar. Mm-hmm. Okay. Just a couple of weeks ago, Russia agreed to sell oil to China and to take RMBs, okay, the renminbi, which is the Chinese currency. Okay, it used to be that the dollar was the medium of exchange globally. That is slowly eroding, okay? 23 countries now that are pulling out of the dollar. It's no longer going to be the standard currency. That in and of itself hurts us because we get substantial benefits by being the global currency. But it's worse than that, because what will happen as stage 2 is that they will stop buying our bonds. And they have to buy our bonds because we have a huge trade deficit on top of everything else, these terrible trade deficits, okay? And we have tremendous budget deficits. It just went through $19 trillion, okay? It
Right.
just went through $19 trillion. So we have got to have people buying our bonds. Well, what if China suddenly says, well, I don't think we will buy your bonds anymore? Okay, that's stage 2. Then what's stage 3? Well, if they're not buying our bonds, what are they going to want to do?
Sell them.
They're going to start to want payment.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, they're going to start to want payment. That's the real killer. Okay, so we're on the downhill slide.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I hate to say it, I have no use for Trump at all, but he's not wrong. He's not wrong that we've been getting killed. And the corporations have done it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a terrible thing.
There's definitely a legitimate reason for discontent among the electorate and citizens broadly, for sure. They may have found the wrong, they may have stumbled across the wrong person motivating about solutions, but
you've all seen the figures, and I've seen the figures about how people have not progressed, and you could just see it there at the end of the 70s. There was kind of a peak, 78, 79, and from then on, there's been very little increase in the average worker's salary. Okay, where has the money gone? And now with this semi-recovery that we've had, where's that money gone? Well, it's gone to the top 1%, the top 1/10 of 1%. I mean, it's just, the average citizen now knows that he's getting screwed.
Yeah, we talked about a story on this show maybe about a month ago that said, something like less than a very small, I can't remember the exact number, but a very small percentage when you break it down by county in the United States have actually seen a recovery. The recovery is not just isolated in,
I saw that study, and if I remember right, 81% of the counties in the United States have had a decrease in their per capita income. Okay, now these are all the small town, rural areas. Those places have just hollowed out. There are places you can, I mean, we used to joke about the ghost towns out west, the gold, silver, that kind of thing. Well, now those places exist just because the businesses picked up and left.
Here in Illinois, it's coal towns.
Yeah.
Or one big Walmart came in the county seat, and all the other little guys. I mean, where I live here, this is Columbia, South Carolina, where I am. We used to have 2 very nice hardware stores. One was about 3 blocks this way, one was about 2 blocks that way. It was wonderful. Now they're gone. Okay, so you can drive way out to the end of town to Lowe's or Home Depot. Okay, that's what you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that the corporations have knocked all of these little guys out of business.
Yep.
Killing local economies left and right.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Before we go, do you have anything coming up in the future while we are based out of Springfield?
Well, yeah, I'm going up to Chicago. I promised those people that I would do. There's still 2 uncommitted delegates up there, so I'm going to give a presentation at the Illinois Green Party on the 5th of March. It's at the whatever it is there, just south of the Loop, 525 South State Street.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The conference center or something, and so I'll be there on the 5th, and I will give a presentation and hand out some stuff, try to sell some books, try to make some money, whatever, and maybe get one more delegate. Maybe you've seen I did win a delegate.
You did.
Yeah, and this was a wonderful thing. They took their vote. They had 23 votes, and Jill got 20, and there were 2 that were still
undecided. And these are delegates, yeah.
These are the delegates for the national convention, and I got one.
You did, yes, you did. I did not know you were going to be in Chicago, and I hope I'll see you there. Right now, for me, it's transportation. Whether I can, after work on Friday, get to Chicago by Saturday
Okay.
But yeah,
Well, please
hopefully,
do. It's, you know, it's about a, what, 180 miles from.
yeah, it's about 3 hours. So.
Yeah, about 3 hours. You can take the train too.
Yep. Yep. So I hope to see you up there, and
That's good. Yeah, and then I'm visiting other states, and I'm also doing quite a bit by Skype.
Yeah.
Nice.
Which is really good. Connecticut is the following weekend, but that is by Skype. And I've got other things. I'm going to schools in this area and so forth. You know, and that's, I just try to stay active and hopefully get some more delegates. I've been told that maybe 1 or 2 out in California. There are a couple of other states where it looks like I might get some delegates. There's no question that Jill Stein's going to win, and that's fine. I mean, everybody kind of understood that. But the idea is to have some different things talked about. She's really not talking about constitutional change, whereas I am.
Yep.
And she's not talking about having an ideology, which again, we didn't have time for because it's more complex. But there is a subjectively based, cognitively based ideology that's beginning to cut crosswise. All right. I got up here, here's the necessary theoretical crossweave. Do you see that? Because you have objective, all right, you know, men dominated women, white folks dominated black folks. Those are all objectively based, and they're all conceptually vertical. What I'm talking about is a wholly new theory that is conceptually horizontal, and that is an equity of the perceivers, an equity of different kinds of minds, and that it would fit as a crossweave, all right? So that, you know, your mind gets equal representation with his mind, and that's the way people see things. And it has nothing to do with whether or not you're white or black or young or old or rich or poor. It's the kind of mind you have.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
Awesome. Yeah, no, I had a question about subatomic revolution for you, and you said you didn't want to get into the theory, so I was like, oh,
Well,
put this post-it note over here.
That's exactly the right word. This is subatomic. This is subatomic. For every objectivity, there's a subjectivity. Okay, you can remember that. So you have you know, you're a white male, a certain age, certain income, all that kind of thing. Doesn't tell me anything about what kind of mind you have.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Absolutely.
So now we're getting down to the subatomic break. It's basically, I think, and it sounds like a lot of hubris here, it's basically what Niels Bohr did in physics.
Yeah.
To get to the subatomic breakthrough. I think that's the next frontier in political theory, political ideology. Well, you guys have been great. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you, Bill. It really means a lot to us.
Is this going to be available on a tape? Can you send me?
Well, it'll go out probably
either today or tomorrow on iTunes.
With
can send you a link.
Yeah, with our episode, and I'll share it out with you then. And then when we get a chance to, we'll cut down. So this week's show will open with your interview.
Wonderful.
As our feature, and then we'll just go into our week of news discussion.
Okay.
And then as soon as we get a chance, we'll get that up because we usually post right after the show. But then we'll, when we get a chance, we'll cut out just the interview.
Wonderful.
And send you that out. So that'll be in audio form, and then hopefully we'll get a good pull on the video from this. We tried to do an interview with Mimi Soltysik from the Socialist Party, and we had a great interview. The video is awful.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's just kind of how it went. The video didn't turn out well. So if we do get a good quality video from you on this, which it looks like from watching, we're going to get a pretty good one. We'll share that out too as soon as we get it all rendered out.
Please send it to me because I would love to put it up on Facebook.
Absolutely. Excellent. Yeah.
Thank you again, Bill. It means a lot, buddy.
Thank you very much, and I hope to see you this weekend.
Thank you very much. You both were great. I really enjoyed it. Take care.
Have a good day.
Same to you.